If you've trained in martial arts, you know the standard progression. Learn a technique, drill it, then spar. Here's why that approach fails and what actually works. A two-man exercise is a structured training scenario where both participants have defined roles and specific objectives. When you step onto the floor for your first two-man exercise, you know exactly what skill you're practicing, what your partner will do, and what success looks like. This is not sparring. This is applied skill development under controlled conditions. Every variable is known. Nothing is left to chance. And that's precisely the point. You're not trying to survive chaos. You're building precision. Two-man exercises follow a deliberate progression that mirrors how any complex skill is mastered. First, isolated conditions. You know exactly what's coming, and your only task is to execute the correct mechanical response. Next, variable conditions. You know what category of response is expected, but the specific presentation varies. You must observe and select the appropriate response from your mechanical library. Finally, random conditions. You navigate fully unpredictable scenarios, drawing on complete integration of all skills. This is the same progression used to train pilots, surgeons, and elite athletes. You don't start by throwing someone into chaos. You build competence through increasingly complex but still controlled scenarios. The difference between two-man exercises and sparring isn't semantic, it's philosophical. Sparring typically asks, can you survive in chaos? Two-man exercises ask, can you apply specific skills with precision under increasing pressure? In sparring, the goal is often to win the exchange. This creates incentives to fall back on what's comfortable, abandon structure under pressure, and prioritize survival over development. You learn to fight but often reinforce bad habits. In two-man exercises, the goal is always development. There's no winner or loser. There's only, did you execute with proper form? Did you maintain your structure? Did you manage distance appropriately? When something goes wrong, you can isolate exactly which element failed and address it directly. Here's a question worth considering. When a student spends years training traditional forms, whether they're called katas, pumsi, or hayang, and then steps into a sparring match for the first time, how much of that formal training actually shows up? The answer, observed across decades of instruction, is surprisingly small. Watch a traditional karate or taekwondo practitioner in their first sparring match. The deep stances disappear. The chambered positions vanish. The precise, deliberate movements are replaced by something that looks remarkably like generic kickboxing. This happens because sparring introduces chaos before the student has built the cognitive framework to maintain structure under pressure. When the brain is flooded with sensory input, it defaults to what's simplest and most familiar. The two-man exercise approach prevents this collapse entirely. Here's why. By the time you reach the point of random application, which is the closest we get to sparring in the traditional sense, you haven't just drilled techniques. You've systematically built every component of performance under progressively challenging but still controlled conditions. When pressure increases, your structure doesn't deteriorate. It's been tested and reinforced at every level of complexity. The mechanics have been applied against resistance. The timing has been calibrated against moving partners. The distance management has been practiced in every zone. There's no gap between form and application because application was built into the process from the beginning, just in a controlled, progressive way. The result, when you finally engage in fully random training, most of your mechanical structure survives. Not because you're tougher or more talented, but because you built capability the way any complex skill is properly developed. Systematically, progressively, and with complete attention to the underlying components. If you've been training for years and find your techniques falling apart under pressure, this is why. The methodology matters more than the effort. Start with controlled two-man exercises. Build your foundation before you test it in chaos. Stop trying to survive chaos. Start building skills that survive under pressure. Two-man exercises are how you get there.